resource is only talked about in statute in the definitions.
Of course, but why not?
There's not a separate section for available
They got
resources.
right on it. I bet they won't once.
So an available resource would be, for instance, well, let me back up a little bit. A first-time applicant coming in to apply for general assistance, the only thing you're basing eligibility on is need. Is there a need for this client? And then you determine is there income and whatnot. If this person has given up an available resource, let's say they're incarcerated and their SSI has stopped. They have been in a treatment program and they've left AMA. These are all support systems that would eliminate their need for general assistance. They have chosen to give up those available resources. We cannot currently deny them for giving up an available resource. We just have to turn a blind eye and pretend that they never had that resource available to them. So we're trying to put in language that if someone gives up an available resource, there really isn't a need, because had they not given up that resource, they would be able to support themselves.
Representative Mallory and Representative Brakey will be.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. You summarized the bill very well. Thank you.
Representative Vashon.
My question with regards to available resources, one of the things I see is support from relatives not legally liable for the relatives. So what does that mean? They have to go and take from their brother, their sister, their resources that's available. So are other family members on the hook to pay for the applicant before they can seek general assistance?
I'm not sure if I understand the question, but an available resource is, for instance, if someone is paying for someone's cell phone, that's a resource. And it doesn't have to be a legally liable relative who's paying for that cell phone. It could be an aunt, it could be a sister, it could be whoever. But if someone is paying for your cell phone, that money could be going towards paying your rent, so that's a resource.
Okay, so the resource is identified when you're asking who pays for your cell
Yes.
phone. My mother pays. Okay,
Yes.
clear. Thank you.
Representative Gattini.
And if my mother will pay for my cell phone, but she won't pay for my rent, that's what happens then.
Well, we have safe links, we have free cell phones now, so people are able to acquire those.
I'm just using an example. If you gave an example of a family member helping somebody out in a specific way, but if they choose not to help them out in that specific way.
So are you asking if a mother pays for someone's cell phone and doesn't pay for their rent, what happens? Is that what you're asking?
Right.
We would use that as income.
You would use the mother's decision to...
If the mother's paying $40 a month for a cell phone, that's what we use as income, because that could be used towards their rent or CMP bill.
So putting the burden back on the mother, is mother a relative to...
No, it's the choice of the applicant to take that money for a cell phone versus his rent.
I was thinking about a situation where the mother was paying the cell phone. They decided they wanted that person to have a cell phone, but they're not willing to pay for that person's rent. I'm not about the person getting $40 and making a decision, I got to put it towards my cell phone. I think that the resource, whether it's a parent or another program, may come for a specific...
It's
with strings attached.
It's in kind, we have to use it as in kind. So if they're paying for a non-basic necessity, you have to use that as in kind. It has to be used as income.
That's currently.
Yes.
So it's currently the rule that says that if someone is paying for your cell phone, it has to account for its income. So why do we need to make this change?
I'm not sure it has any relationship to the cell phone. It's a bigger picture.
That if I have a cell phone,
right,
and it's being paid for by my mother,
mm-hmm.
My mother never paid for my cell phone. Isn't that a cell phone? If I had a cell phone that's being paid for by my mother, you're going to count that as income.
Yes.
Currently.
Yes. But if someone gives up another type of available resource, let's say the treatment program, the SSI, the whatnot, then we are not able to use that as an available resource right now for initial clients.
need to look carefully at what the current law, current statute says.
So, just to try to get clarification myself and maybe for the committee. So, the cell phone is an example of what's currently used an available resource, and that's currently counted towards income when determining GA eligibility, correct?
I think it's defined in the statute as in-kind income
Right.
versus an available resource. I guess you can sort of
Okay. And it's,
interchange them.
when you're determining eligibility, and you can leave the mic on because we'll. When you're determining GA eligibility, is that in-kind income? Is that currently a factor in determining that?
Yes.
So that's kind of that's being used as an example to explain what available resource is. That's not necessarily something that is directly pertaining to the changes that we're making.
Correct.
We're making. So that's already law.
I think it started with the relatives,
Okay.
because the available resources just says support from relatives. Potential resources says legally liable relatives, which I believe is like, the spouse and your child is mother, right? So this definition doesn't use that legally liable relatives. That's why Representative Sean has to know the relatives. And the example was the aunt and the cell phone. The cell phone is much less important than the relative.
Additional questions? Representative Hand.
Thank you. This may be way off the mark, but I'm going to walk through a hypothetical situation. You can tell me if this would be impacted by this bill. A parent whose child has gone into state custody, into the foster care system, and they have weekly visits with their child, their family reunification. The department is paying the bus passes, let's say, for them to get to the visits with their child. And then that person has a friend who can drive for them instead. And they say, look, I don't need the bus pass anymore. Is that considered to be abandoning an available resource and then making them ineligible for general assistance?
I presume they aren't using the bus pass?
If they stop using it because now they have a friend who can drive.
They're getting the transportation whatever way they can, so no, we wouldn't disqualify them for using someone else to transport them versus using a bus pass.
So they're not abandoning that available resource?
So they don't need that resource because they have an alternative resource.
So you're saying only if they were using GA to pay for transportation, hypothetically, would that be? If they gave up the DHHS bus pass and then asked GA for money for transportation, then that would
come into play.
Then that would come into play. But if they're not using GA for transportation, then it's not. Then it doesn't affect it.
So it only affects it for that specific resource going from the one that they abandoned to general assistance?
If they're going to abandon a resource and then come and ask for general assistance to replace that resource, that's when it comes into play.
I think I understand.
So, to clarify, and I guess one way I'm thinking of this is it's truly making GA the safety net of last resort, and that the resource of last resort, and that if there are other resources available to you, that you utilize those first. Yeah, Representative Keene.
I would just encourage members of the committee to read the existing statute 4317, which says that an applicant or recipient must make a good faith effort to secure any potential resource that may be available. And it lists a whole bunch of things. And I mean, to me, when I look at the existing statute, it's pretty clear and it's pretty strong, and it includes the flood situation. Anyway,
Can you respond to that?
Yes, it addresses potential, doesn't address available, and with potential, you have to give them a 7-day notice to acquire that potential resource.
so is that what we're talking about, or a 7-day notice?
Well, potential is different than available. Potential is trying to acquire something ongoing. Available is you've already given something up when you're trying to replace that resource with general assistance.
So is the difference that, so something, after giving something up, it may no longer be available to you? Is that the difference? So if you were to abandon a resource, that could still be a potential resource, or it could not be,
Correct,
because you've abandoned it.
correct,
And maybe by abandoning it, it's no longer available to you going forward.
correct.
So what's the example, give me some of the examples again of abandoned resources, or some of the ones that already exist.
So if someone gives up subsidized housing, if someone leaves my treatment program, which was medically, the doctor said you need to go to this substance abuse program, for instance, which would certainly eliminate your need for general assistance, get you on the path to working, vocational rehabilitation, giving up these
Did you
resources.
say SSI when you mentioned SSI?
If someone's incarcerated, they've given up their SSI.
So a person who's been incarcerated and lost their SSI, in your mind is like voluntarily abandoned?
They've created their own situation.
So in this, a person who has been incarcerated and has lost their SSI, because that's a consequence of being incarcerated, can't get GA to make up for that benefit. I'm just trying to figure out.
When an initial applicant comes in to apply for general assistance right now, we cannot use that against them. The only thing we can do is.
You want to be able to use that against them?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Representative Hymanson.
I'm just trying to think through hypotheticals, someone who's in a housing and something bad happens in the housing, whatever the badness you can think of, and abandons it because of the badness. What happens then?
Just cause comes into play.
Okay.
If on page 2 of the bill, there's a list of, looks like A through H on different reasons that would be qualify as just cause. So this is so that might fall under any other evidence that is reasonable and appropriate. So what's listed here is A, an unreasonable requirement placed on the applicant or applicant's family by the provider of the available resource that interferes with any rights secured by the United States Constitution or secured by the Constitution of Maine. B, discrimination on the basis of religion, ethnicity, age, race, color, gender, sexual orientation, national origin, or disability. C, the use of the available resource jeopardizing the health or safety of an applicant or applicant's family, so that might qualify under C. D, a natural disaster that makes the available resource uninhabitable or unavailable. E, abandonment of shelter housing in order to obtain permanent housing. F, inability to access available resources due to a lack of public or private transportation or medical illness or injury. G, any just cause is defined in subsection 4316A, subsection 5.
That's the word.
What's that?
That's the not word.
Okay. And H, any other evidence that is reasonable and appropriate.
I'll just ask Sue this, otherwise I'm going to do it. This is the definition for just cause at the beginning, for the definition. Just cause means a valid, verifiable reason that hinders an individual in complying with one or more conditions of eligibility. Is there something wrong with this one? Why do you need this one?
That's what the revisor's office did.
Well, I don't think they came up with it on their own. Because this would make a third definition of just cause in this section.
I have no objection to that.
I sort of understand why you would have a second definition of just cause for it being unable to work. I guess I can see why you might have that, which is what the second definition of, which is in here as well. But this, and I did ask Phil, I'm like, is there something wrong with this one? And she said no.
As a bill sponsor, I have no objection. Yeah. Any discussion, or is there a motion from the committee? Representative Sanderson?
I move that LD 1036 ought to pass as amended.
Yes, Anna?
I would also, give your indulgence, the definition in here for available resource cannot not go in the definition section as opposed to being in this section. The potential resources is in the definition section. Available could be up there too.
You're the
You
master,
okay with
you're the
that?
master drafter.
I don't know about that, but, okay.
Okay, then I'll. Is there a second? Second by Representative Vashon. Moved by Representative Sanderson. On to pass as amended. Any discussion before we take a vote? Seeing no discussion, we'll take a vote. All in favor of the motion on to pass as amended, please raise your hand. All opposed? The motion fails. Senator Haskell.
Not to pass?
All right, it's been moved and seconded by Senator Haskell and Representative Hammond, ought not to pass. Sorry, who's seconded? Seeing no discussion, we'll take a vote. All in favor of the motion ought not to pass, please raise your hand. All opposed? All right, it's a vote. Minority report?
Ought to pass as amended.
Yep. All right. All right, next we'll take up 1037. I'll save us all a lot of time on this, because this is something I'm ultimately going to ask that we table. Because I would like to look at, and still like to look at some potential amendments on this, so I would entertain a motion to table.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded, Representative Sanderson and Representative Malaby to table LD 1037. All in favor of the motion to table, please raise your hand. All right, all opposed? Unanimous, the item is tabled. All right. Hey, we've we've emerged on the other side of welfare. So take up LD 274. Representative Hammond.
Thank you. I'd just like to inquire, how many bills do we have to move each week? So 29?
Give me some long nights some days. Okay, all right. 274, so this must have been taken up previously when I was in here.